This week on Jaywalking, it's just me solo walking again. I'm just giving you a State of the Union 2 months since I've left teaching and sort of the fun antics I got to do on the road with board teachers, and hear a little bit about my upcoming Alaska trip with my family and comedy, and just talking about life. So I hope you enjoy it. Like, share, subscribe. Enjoy the episode. Welcome back. Here we are, Jaywalking solo episode today. Just little life updates. I had a crazy day even getting in here today. Just one of those. We're going to Alaska tomorrow. I got into a comedy festival called Alaska Before You Die, and I'm very excited about it. We're going to be out there for like a week and a half, and because it coincides with spring break, I'm actually taking my daughters as well, my wife, and so we're making a little family trip of it. So today's the day before, so it's just the madness of getting everything ready and things going wrong. And it's, one of those days where it's like things just keep happening. The kind of day where you hit every red light coming through. Or, I was doing a podcast today, and then my computer charger wasn't charging the block. I was on tour last week, and a Sprite broke in my book bag from the green room, and I guess it got into my block. So the block just was no good, and I didn't realize it. So right as they were doing like a quick question round, it just zipped off. So now I got to do a whole new day with them. I felt terrible. It was just one of those. And then I made a mishap at scheduling someone for something. And it's just one thing after another of all these little things. But I will say I'm proud of myself, because normally I would get so mad at myself for not being perfect. And I'm kind of well, we handled it. I fixed each issue as it came up. And I didn't let myself get to that panic, when you get to DEFCON 2 and you're like, do I hit the big red button? And so I was just grateful that now, because I'm not teaching, because I'm not also having that monkey on my back, that was such a huge weight on me that I didn't realize that now I'm I'm taking things in stride. We've in the middle of a comedy class at Soul Joel's. So if you're around Wednesday, April 15th, we're doing our grad show. So they're in the middle of it. We had our week 3 yesterday, and one of the women in the class had just made a statement up front, unprompted. She was just I just have to say this. This space has been so awesome. It's so rare to have a group of adults in a room and that are just supporting each other, and everybody wants everybody to do so well. And she's like, you just don't see a lot of that anymore. And one, it's a shame that we don't see a lot of that anymore, but also it was kind of very sweet for her to say, because that means I've created a safe space for them, and that's so important to me. I mean, that's sort of the teaching in my life right now, is focusing on these comedy classes, because I don't think any of them have a guise of oh, we're going to have a Netflix special one day. Hey, maybe that'd be wonderful. But I think a lot of them are just trying to conquer a fear, or do something new, or be around, some people being creative and just make some adult friendships. And every class we've done, and I think this is our 12th in the last 2 years, it's been really great to see a group of strangers become friends, because that's always been my favorite definition of stand-up. Stand-up comedy to me is making a group of strangers friends for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 45 minutes. And so to be able to do that, and I was talking with Joel Richardson, who owns Soul Joel's, and I was filling him in on how class went, because he wasn't able to make it last night. And, he even said to me, he's like, dude, you emit joy, he's like, and since you've left teaching, I think there's just a notable difference in how you've had that weight lifted on. So you're just able to kind of exude that even more so. Not that I wasn't doing it already, but just there's a level now where I'm not bogged down from the day. And I hope I feel that way with my kids too, and my family, and, just being more present. Because I think after 2 months, if I do a State of the Union, after 2 months of walking away from a career that I did for 21 years and thought I was going to do for my entire life, I very grateful. It's I'm very grateful for those 21 years, but I'm also very grateful that I made the decision to walk away when I did, because I've got zero regrets. It's actually been a really great 2 months for me. Even just last weekend, which is an opportunity I wouldn't have been able to do, was I was on tour with the board teachers last week. So I flew into Louisville, Kentucky on Thursday. Then we ended up driving north to Indiana, and then we drove east to Akron, Ohio, and then we ended up even more east in Erie, PA. And because of the Thursday, Friday shows, I wouldn't have been able to take those days off of school, which was sort of the issue I was running into, where I had 70, 80 sick days, but, social media was going to tell on me I wasn't sick, and I didn't want to pretend I was sick or make a fake doctor's appointment or something. And so I tried to be honest with them. And like I had said in previous episodes, that was where I made my first mistake. But I think in doing that, it forced me to walk away. And that was a great decision. It's all around. So I didn't have to lie about it. It was the first time I was on tour that I wasn't spending the entire van ride or in the green room grading papers or updating grades. I was able to just do more comedy or write or help some of my students polish up their material. And that work to me is more valuable than, checking a Google Classroom, worksheet for a Spanish student that probably just used ChatGPT anyways. So, it was just one of those things that it just wasn't as fulfilling of work. And now I'm doing work that's super fulfilling. It was cool on the tour, though. So we flew into Louisville. I didn't really get to see Louisville because my flights got delayed. I didn't really have any issues with TSA because we're in that heat of it right now with the shortage and the staff not getting paid. And so some of them have to, instead of reporting to their job, they actually got to go do a job that's going to make them money, like DoorDash or Uber or whatever. So I didn't see too much of an issue there. I just had some flights delayed, but it ended up working out. So I didn't get to see much of Louisville, but I had done a weekend in Louisville a couple summers ago with the tour. So I actually got to go to the Louisville Sluggery Factory, and I had seen the city before. But then we drove up to Indiana and Wabash, I don't know, I messed it up when I did it on stage too. So, but they were cool. It was like a time capsule. It was like this old-timey Midwestern town and old theater. We stayed at this like inn that was very fancy. But like I got in, the wallpaper was a certain color and the furniture had this like old motif to it that I like looked down like, this room is haunted. There's no way this room is not haunted. And then after the show, we stopped at the bar before they closed. And I just said to them, like, I feel like this room is haunted. She's like, oh yeah, this place is haunted. And she's like, actually, and she said 203 was where a murder had taken place, where a guy like had murdered his like pregnant girlfriend or something. And I'm like, I'm staying in 205. I was literally staying right next door. And like, then I'm like, how I have to go back into this room now. And like, listen, I don't know what I believe, but I do know that when I got in the room, I don't know if it was just hyper focused on it, but I was a little nervous to go to the room. And when I shut the door and I was by myself in the room and it's like, 11:30 at night, I felt a certain way when I walked into that room. And like every time I went to the bathroom or got up, I was just kind of like waiting. I kept the TV on. I'm watching like Gilmore Girls. I'm like, give me something that I can put on this TV that will not make me think about it. But then that kind of backfired because in the middle of the night, it was like an infomercial. And I just thought somebody was in the room talking to me. So that freaked me out for a second. But it was the most comfortable bed I slept in the whole time. That's how the trade-off. Right? It's going to be a haunted room, but the bed's going to be super comfortable. So that was Indiana. And I got to walk around the town. I actually went to the museum there because most of the stuff was closed. It was like, and it was funny how they had things labeled. It was like very simple. It was like books. Oh, I wonder what they sell there. One building just had sports, and a lot of the buildings were closed. So the bookstore, actually, I was trying to go to the bookstore because Alicia loves books. So I'm like, oh, I'll get her a book from here. And you get to the front, and it's like had a big close sign. It said closed until further. And then it just stopped. Like they didn't want to tell us the rest of the story. And then I'm like, oh my God, you can't get a book. So the book's closed, the sports closed. I went around the corner, the video store was closed. I'm like, you can't read the book or watch the movie in this town. I don't know what they're doing up there, but they did have a museum, and the museum was beautiful. But in the middle of it was a pop-up mini golf course. So it's like, oh, here are the ancient artifacts of Wabash, Indiana. Here's a windmill. Here's a clown's mouth. Like what? Like, it was just so weird to me to see this. But I was like, you know what? That tracks. Because if we're going to get kids in this age to learn, they have to be entertained now, right? You have to entertain them. So if you're going to learn about it, you gotta You got to do that. It's the same. I was surprised there weren't like TikTok stations around. You're like, kids, we're going to do the Civil War, but we're going to learn it through the art of dance. It's like your lesson plans as a teacher right now have to sound like a game show, right? It's like, hey, kids, if you finish this worksheet early, you get to shoot the Nerf gun at the Renaissance. Like, you just have to trick them because we're not teachers, we're cruise directors is what we are now, and it's. So, like, it made sense to me. We're not differentiating instruction anymore. We're choreographing history. And it's just such a different vibe. And so they just had this random pop-up mini golf course. And there were some cool things. So I kind of walked around for a little bit and hung out there. And so it was kind of fun to have the time during the day. Because a lot of times on tour, it sounds glamorous. But, like, like I said, like, when I fly in that first night, I only got in, like, an hour and a half before I had to go to the show. So that was just enough time to check in, get a shower, get changed. I don't iron, so like I'll start the shower early and I'll just hang it in the bathroom and like steam it. So I like had time to do that, and so I didn't get to really see. And then you go to the show, then you get back, it's late at night, and then oftentimes by like 9:30 the next morning, we're in a Sprinter van driving to the next city. But we took some time to smell the roses because we did do a couple stop-offs. When we were going from Indiana to Ohio, I didn't realize this, but they filmed a bunch of movies, including Shawshank Redemption, at the Ohio State Reformatory School. So you can just show up, and like the entire Shawshank was filmed there. So like inside are all the places you would see in the movie. So it was like super cool. You had the warden's office with the safe on the wall and the scripture thing hanging. You had the desk where he had his feet up and like locked himself in to play the music for everybody. You had the Brooke Hatlin Memorial Library sign. You had Brooks' apartment where he like hung himself and wrote Brooks was here and Red was here too. So it was really cool to just see all of that. The scene where they did the electric chair, like all of those things. So it was really cool. Yeah, and then you had the cells. You go through all the cells, and all the cells were open. You could like legit go into the cells. I'd heard that they didn't shoot the cell scenes there because the cells didn't face each other, and so they actually built some in a warehouse offsite, so that they could face each other for some of the scenes. So that piece was different, but it was cool to go through and go to the chapel, and so we had a lot of fun kind of traveling around. It was kind of nice team building for the group to like stop off, and which was kind of fun. So yeah, I'd never been there, so that was a lot of fun. And then we went to Grandpa's Cheese Barn. I didn't get any cheese there. I did get some cashews covered in habanero and pineapple, which were okay, but I didn't get any cheese. And then there's a big fun sign that said, "I cut the cheese at Grandpa's barn and thought of you." So I sent that to my father-in-law because I thought of him. And so it's just fun to kind of do a little touristy stuff along the way. And then after the show in Erie on Sunday, we were flying out of Cleveland. So we drove west 2 hours to Cleveland for the night. And we actually stopped off at the Christmas Story house with the lamp in the window. And so that was kind of fun. And the one night in Ohio, we went to Topgolf after, and their Topgolf was open till 1 a.m., so we went and played for like 2 hours after. So, yeah, it was kind of fun because, I wasn't worried about grading and doing all this other stuff, so I could kind of, stop and smell the roses a little bit. And it was exciting, And, it's always sad to be away from my family for those days, and, it's a little extra stress on Amanda and my mom and her mom. But, we work it out. Now this week, like I said, we're going to Alaska. The girls are coming. Amanda's coming. So it's going to be a lot of fun for us to go explore. We're doing like a UTV to a glacier, and we're doing a whale watching tour for like 4 hours on one day. And so it's going to be fun to see the Northern Lights. So it's still the window of time where you can see it. So we just have to drive about 30 minutes outside of Anchorage to a couple trailheads where you'll be able to see it, where there's like less light pollution. So yeah, it's just really cool that I'm excited because that was the missing piece last week. Was it's nice to be on the road and all of that, but it's nice to have the kids and all of that with me. I have a hard time sleeping in the hotel without one of the kids crawling in bed and trying to kick me in the face. Like I just can't get to that REM cycle without that piece. So That'll be fun this week to have them with us. It's gonna be a long day. I'm obviously nervous about the TSA lines, and TSA does a program for kids with disabilities or anybody with disabilities called TSA Cares. And if you like, you can go online and fill out a form, or if it's within 72 hours, you can call, and then you let them know what the deal is, and they'll set a representative up to like help escort you through the process. So I did that, but with TSA being short-staffed, somebody talked me through it, gave me a thing, but until you get there and see if they have the staffing to help you. So I'm kind of nervous because I don't know how early we should get there. I don't want the girls to have to be at the airport any longer than they have to be. It's already going to be a long day, but it looks like we're going to try to get there like 3.5 hours early just to be safe. And hopefully we'll be able to go through the handicap line with Alicia, and hopefully that line won't be as long. I don't know. Maybe it will be long. So that's kind of the up in air thing for tomorrow. That's kind of a little nerve wracking, but I'd rather get there and then they can kind of curl up and hang out and, get some food in them or do whatever. And, it's not terribly early. Like our flight's 10:42. So if we get there at 7:15, then we'll be there 3.5 hours early. So that's not terrible. So they'll get up about 6:30. We're going to stay down there tonight. So I'll let you know how the TSA goes, and hopefully it'll go smoothly. But yeah, so that's the challenge for tomorrow. I got to pack. That's the challenge for after this episode is over. But the nerve. I tried to just stay calm through all of it because it's so easy to get caught up in the nerves of everything and the stress of it all. And the next thing you know, you're fighting, and Amanda and I are arguing on the ride down about did we forget this? And so I just want to be cool about it and just have a good time. And we'll get there. It'll all work itself out. But so I'm excited. So I'm in this festival. It's called Alaska Before You Die. And they do like a week and a half because obviously if you're going to go out there, you want it to be worth it. So I actually have 4 shows while I'm out there. The first weekend, it's like Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then I have a Thursday show as well. And then the fest has like a film festival part of it. They have, a bunch of shows to go support other people. So it'd be kind of fun. Family during the day. And then, after dinner, I'm going to shoot out to whatever show's going on that night. There's a couple Philly comedians. One in particular, I know Pat House, who's an amazing comic, headliner in his own right, but in his day, he's opened up for people like Tom Segura, and he was actually supposed to open for Todd Glass, who was going to be one of the major headliners there. Great guy, great comic, good friend of mine, so I'm excited to see him out there. And then Dwayne White, who's a comic out of D.C. that I know really well, is going to be there. He's a ex-military veteran, so he does a lot of USO tour stuff, and so I'm excited to see him as well. So it's just kind of fun to be in Alaska too. So I'll let you know if I wrestle a moose while I'm out there. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be a nice little travel. I've not been to Alaska, so it's a first time for me. I was joking that I'm trying to get to all of the states, even the hard-reaching ones like Alaska, Hawaii, Greenland. I'm trying to get to them all, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, no, I think in that regard, everything's been going really well. So I'm excited to get the chance again. I wouldn't have been able to do this had I stayed in the classroom. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of see where all of that goes. The girls are excited too. We've been having a lot of fun. Although Alicia's realizing, she's a preteen, so it's hard to determine as a parent what is preteen kind of vibe, and then what's the autism, and where is this Venn diagram crossover, because it's very emotional a lot of times now. And like the other night I had to take her tablet. It was like 9:00, so she's by 8:30 they're supposed to. We try to shut it down an hour before bedtime, and then they have to read a book or do whatever. And she was just not cooperating. And when I took the tablet from her, she's just like, ugh, fine. And she just had this like energy to her that I hadn't seen before. And then she gave it to me, but she was up in arms about it. And then she's like, can I have it back tomorrow? I was like, of course you can have it back tomorrow. And she's like, oh, why can't I have it at night? And I said, well, because your brain needs a rest. And she looked at me without missing a beat. And she's like, my brain needs to shut up. And I'm like, that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's probably true. I mean, she's at that stage where it's like the Inside Out 2 movie, and I'm sure her brain is never shutting up. Like, there's just so much going on in there. and then she's like so overwhelmed, and so it's just funny to see. So hopefully, I'm hoping she'll do really well with the travel. And we've traveled. We just went to Puerto Rico recently. We've gone to Europe before, so but this will be the longest travel day in an airplane because we have a flight to like Texas, which is like 5 hours, and then layover for brief, just enough time to get to the next airplane, thankfully. But then it's like a 7-hour flight to Alaska. So, that's a long time. So we're gonna have to keep, ABC, always be charging, and make sure those tablets are charged and ready to go. Screen time limits are gonna be lifted. Like whatever we need to get there is what we're gonna be doing. And I don't really have any apprehension about flying. I know a lot of people say, I think we're in a safest time to be flying. We had that unfortunate disaster that recently happened at LaGuardia, which actually one of the other comics on the tour with me, Mike Vecchione, was flying back to New York City the same morning I was out of Cleveland. But when I looked up at the sign, because my flight was a little earlier, so I looked up at the sign and saw it said canceled, and I just realized, that Canada Air fire truck collision had just happened like 11:45 at night the night before. So, so still fresh that they had, shut down the airport for a minute. So I'm sure he had to redirect to like JFK or something like that. But yeah, it's a wild time. But I feel like, we're at a safe spot. But I know those air traffic controllers are, overextended and overworked. And, if you've heard those audio, you kind of realize you're only hearing one voice because there's only one guy, and they had a disaster they had like a smoke-filled cabin on another thing that they were dealing with, which is what I think the fire truck was kind of going or coming from. And so, yeah, there's a lot to do. And hearing that guy say like, I messed up at the end, whether true or not, like, it's an unfortunate situation that I'm sure he feels terrible about because now 2 lives, were at stake because of that. And had that pilot, I think he was 30, had he not had the wherewithal to hit the brakes like he did, it would have been a lot worse than just the 2 of them. So, I mean, talk about heroic efforts and selflessness. Like, that's a job that oftentimes I don't think we think about. I think after like the whole Sully thing happened and, there was sort of this appreciation for that because it's like an umpire. It's like an official in a game. You don't want to know about, you just want them to be invisible because you just want things to go so smoothly. But, you want to know if there's an emergency that they're going to do what's right. And, so far, every time I've ever seen that, these are selfless people that are serving a greater purpose here. So shout out to all the pilots out there. And I'm sure for them, it's a scary time to get in that flight every time. It's no different than, if you're married to someone who's in the service or a police or a first responder, you kind of never know what's going to happen each day. So, but yeah, so I feel safe about flying. I'm excited. I think it's going to be good. Just be a long day. So I want to make sure we get some good sleep tonight and ready for that. I'm excited for that. And then we come back, things are going off. So if you're in the area, I got some fun shows. It's going to be Autism Awareness Month. So actually this episode will air right before the kickoff to Autism Awareness. So I'm very excited to have that. I'm working with the Eagles Autism Foundation and doing a fundraiser for one of the, they do like these teams that enter to kind of, contribute. And so Zach Zoomers is the organization that's part of Eagles Autism that we're raising money for at Soul Joel. So if you want to come laugh, and it's going to be a great show. It's going to be Thursday, April 23rd at souljoels.com. You can get the tickets now. Come support a great cause. Half the proceeds of the ticket sales go right to Eagles Autism. And then if you eat at Gatsby's and mention that you're there for the autism show, I believe 15 or 20% of food sales go back to the organization as well. I think Gatsby's opens as early as 4 o'clock, shows at 7. So great cause, 23rd. And the night before, if you're like a hardcore comedy fan, one of the shows I've been lucky enough to produce at Joel's has been, it's called like I call it the New Material Mike or the New Material Show. And it's basically four working comedians, especially on a Wednesday, because it's like kind of like an off night. They come in and get a chance to work on new material, and then they become a panel for the second half of the show. And any comic can come and put their name in a bucket, and we pull out as many as we can. Everybody gets like a 2-minute set, and they get to run like a joke and that they want to get feedback on. So maybe it's something new for them. Maybe it's not something new and they're, just trying out a new bit. Because sometimes that panel is full of people who produce shows. So it almost can be like a mini audition for some of them. And if they really like your bit, maybe they'll ask you to do a spot on one of their shows, or you can get some feedback on a bit if you're working on it. So just something I was doing to kind of give back to the comedy community that's given me so much. Because I know I've grown so much from doing those type of shows or just being at a mic. And, you're being creative and, but when you're really close to something, it's hard to see things. So it's always good to have somebody give you some feedback. And with doing these classes that I've been doing, I wanted to do something in that vein so people could see how productive that could be for them. And hopefully these comics will start talking and, and doing more. That's what we want. The grad show, like for my next comedy show, is the week before Wednesday the 15th. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff. I'll be at Joel's Wednesday the 15th, the 22nd, and the 23rd. I'm actually going down. If you're a cheer parent, I am going to be going down to Worlds on the 24th and 25th of April. So I'll be in Orlando for the 2 days of that big competition, doing some content and kind of hanging out. So I just booked the flights for that. So I'm excited to kind of continue with Cheer Dad. I've been doing some dance moves on social media. So you followed me, you might have seen my attempt at the Lady Jags 2026 stunt, which I did one, and then I tried to go up a level, and I couldn't grab that. I couldn't do that foot grab. I lost myself there. So, but if you enjoy, I've got a lot of compliments on it. I've enjoyed doing it. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, so I'm excited to get some more content, meet some of the people. And so if you're going to be down there the 24th and 25th, keep an eye out for me. Make sure you come over and say hi. And I'll be interviewing some cheer parents for some bits on social media. And, it'll be a lot of fun. I've had a few groups reach out to me about coming to their organizations and doing a comedy show, like a parent night. So I'm very excited. I'm happy to have some people reach out in my DMs about that. So, hey, if your gym would love to do a comedy night or, let me know. I'll be happy to come wherever you are. California, I've had a bunch of people up in Toronto. So hopefully I'll be able to do a little Cheer Dad tour as well. That's kind of like an exciting thing. May, I have another exciting thing. If you want to come support me Thursday, the last Thursday in May, I think it's the 28th. I'm doing an hour at the Broadway Theater of Pittman, New Jersey. So if you're in the area, I would love to have you come out. Tickets are on sale for that. It's a Thursday night, South Jersey. So if you're in Philly, just across the bridge, would love to see you there. It's a big theater. We're talking like 900 seats. So call your friends, call your enemies, bring them on down. Looking forward to having that and having running my hour. It's basically called Am I Doing This Right? And so it's just, a lot of my stand-up is me being a teacher and a parent and a dad and all of these things. And Am I Doing This Right is sort of this theme I think we all kind of face with parenting. That's sort of the name of the game. There was no rule book. I got a little pamphlet from Phoenixville Hospital when we left with the baby. And I remember treating it like the Bible, like on how to give a bath and how to do all these things. But after that, there's really no rule book. I've been working on this bit where Katie once had asked me, I thought she was asleep. So I was like mentally ready to go watch Netflix and not have it be Bluey. And she hit me with like this, like, why can't I see God? And I'm just like, oof. Couldn't you just ask for a glass of water, sweetheart? 9:47 p.m., you're having a full theological crisis. And so just this concept of because then when you have those moments as a parent, you're like, oh, wow, I got to think about what I feel about this. And what do I think? And I was raised Catholic. So, that just means I am not like a guilty agnostic, I'm not sure. So I light a candle at Christmas just in case kind of. And now it's like, now I have to kind of come to grips with, well, what do I want her to know? And, and I believe in all the tenets of the major religions. So, treat others like you want to be treated and, choose kindness and empathy and all of those things. So, and she's gone to Sunday school. My in-laws are very involved in their Church of the Brethren nearby there. And so they've gone a lot of times to the Sunday school. And before COVID, we had a church that we went to regularly. So, I'm down with all of that. I'm down to be spiritual. I'm down for a higher power. I'm down for all of that. But I wasn't ready to say, why can't you see God? I'm like, well, he sees you, baby, all the time. And she's like Santa? And I'm like, oh, great. Now I just started a theological debate on surveillance culture with my 9-year-old. I'm like, like, yeah. Like, she just thinks they're part of the Avengers now. Santa and God, they're all coming together with the Tooth Fairy. Maybe that'll be the next Marvel series. But yeah, I was just like, ask me my opinion on Chris from Love is Blind. I got an opinion on that. I don't have an opinion on this. So, and Chris was a real asshole if you watch Love is Blind. That guy got what he deserved. And Amber gave it to him. If you watch the reunion for Love is Blind, Amber was kind of crazy, but like her giving it to Chris like won me over on her because she was not letting him get away without realizing he was being a jerk. So it's always painful to watch those reunion episodes, but it's also like watching a car wreck. You can't turn your head. You really want to see it. But yeah, in any event, so I'm using all that kind of parenting stuff and kind of channeling that in and, processing all of that, which has been a lot of fun to do with the Cheer Dad stuff on social media. So I appreciate all of you following. I appreciate all of you being a part of the journey with me because, I don't have to facetiously say that I'm living my dream anymore. I don't have to say it sarcastically anymore. So I appreciate all of you being a part of that. If you're watching this right now, liking, subscribing, doing all that, like that means the world to me. I like this podcast as a way to kind of let everybody see a different side of me and maybe where the jokes come from and where all of that. I'm not trying this to be like a big witty podcast. I think this is just a time to kind of talk out things and have guests come on. And if you didn't watch last week's episode of Die Laughing, definitely go back and watch that one because it was just so powerful. Chelsea being a student of mine in my first year teaching, and then 20 years later, her husband took the comedy class as a distraction while he's waiting for a double lung transplant. And then he ended up starting a nonprofit that involved comedy and producing comedy shows to give back to UPenn Medicine for other transplant people. So he's already serving others while he's still waiting for a double lung transplant, and just the level of like humor that they have about it and how they deal with, something that's really like their composure is inspiring. So it's just, they're always so positive and, I can't imagine what they're really going through. And so, if you haven't watched that, if you haven't supportdivelaughing.org, make sure you go back and watch that because it's very powerful and it's just kind of cool to, again, maybe I am evoking more joy, and if I can help people reach that, then I think that's a little bit more powerful than if a kid can conjugate a verb. So I don't know. That's my take. This has been Jaywalking. I really appreciate you guys watching the episode. Do all the things, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you next week.